also group economics. That's really what I wanted to speak on as well. Is that we have to learn from other cultures. Other cultures work together. Other cultures live together. They'll bunk up. You know what I'm saying? And they're not afraid to have 3 or 4 families in a house, or 3 or 4 families come together to purchase a house so that everyone can truly afford it. We're not just trying to be independent in the sense that, okay, I'm an independent man, I'm an independent woman, but you're doing it by yourself. And then when you have a financial hardship, you by yourself. We need to get more into group economics. We need to get more into unifying our minds together, getting 8 to 10 like-minded people together. Let's build a business so that we can understand what's going on, not putting everything into our personal name. Find out what we need to do to get things into a business name, forming corporations that we can use. What is a trust? You want to just really try to figure out study everything. That's one thing I've been working on as well. Study it all. There's no limit to the amount of knowledge that you can get. And even when you think you got it all, you realize you still got so much way to room to improve on that as well.
Malik's First Job Podcast, here to answer any questions that y'all ask. Financial literacy and resources. Parents and young people becoming bosses. CEOs, future leaders, entrepreneurs. Conferences and boardrooms getting sponsors secured. If you want generational wealth, Brooklyn's own Kerwin Phillip with information to help. Malik's First Job Podcast. Malik's Podcast. Brooklyn's own Kerwin Phillip. Kerwin Phillip. Malik's First Job Podcast. Brooklyn's own Kerwin Phillip. Generational wealth.
All right. Greetings, everyone. How you doing? This is Kerwin Phillip again with another episode of the Malik's First Job Podcast, where we discuss leadership, entrepreneurship, and financial literacy. Again, we're back again with a great episode. Got a good friend of mine who I've known for quite some time, Wesley Moseley. He is a author, homeownership advocate, foreclosure coach, and also the founder of the Silent Academy. He's going to tell us all about what he does. So let's go ahead and welcome Wesley to the show. What's going on, brother?
Peace, family. I appreciate you. What's going on, brother?
I'm good. So for those that don't know who you are, let them know who Wesley Moseley is.
Yes. So I'm Wesley Moseley. I'm a student first. Like I say, as you stated as well, I'm a homeownership advocate. What that really means is that I really encourage and teach about home ownership, not just about purchasing property, but also how to keep your property, how to maintain that investment, the ins and outs of what goes into maintaining your payments, maintaining the property itself, and then also how to exit that property as well, the proper ins and outs of that. And then mainly, especially nowadays, about money management and how to manage these funds so that you don't have a mortgage that takes you 30 years, which, a mortgage is typically like a death note because you're expected to pay that mortgage until you pass. But how to properly manage this investment, properly manage your funds so that you can own your home and not just have a mortgage or a note.
Okay. And so why do you feel home ownership is so important?
Well, it's important, especially for our community and the Black community, Black and brown community. That is our first key, or the easiest key, to be able to pass generational wealth from one generation to the next. So your biggest asset that you acquire in your life as an adult is your home. So if you're able to keep your home, and also one of the biggest things that we tend to fight about, or to have a lot of confusion happen, is when we pass away, is who's going to get the home, how are we going to sell that home to get some type of cash out of that. And then also we're also the most taken advantage of when it comes to buying a home. And many of us speak to, and that's why I love this particular podcast, because we teach children about financial literacy. And many of us at 18, we're looking to get our kids out the home, and let's get your own thing. And you don't have all the tools. Many of us don't have the tools. And then we're putting our children in a position where they want to be independent, but they're truly being dependent on the system, whether it's not necessarily from a government assistance standpoint, but you're dependent on your credit being good. You're dependent on a job or the salary that you're receiving, and then with hopes that you're going to be able to secure yourself financially. So that's why home ownership is so important. Like I said, it's the easiest way to pass generational wealth, especially if you're not too comfortable or savvy when it comes to financing or investing. But this is your first way to get into investing, and then also to pass that knowledge down and the asset down generations.
Okay, okay. Now you just mentioned that having the tools needed to before you get into home ownership. What are those tools specifically that you're speaking of?
So the first tool is education. Not necessarily going to school and getting education, but doing the research, studying. What are you really getting into when it comes to owning a home? It's not just about purchasing. It's understanding the different types of loans that exist, understanding the different programs that exist to educate you. Many people know about first-time home buyers programs and credits and down payment assistance. But before you get into that, educating yourself on credit, educating yourself on money management, how to build a budget, which is something that I've been talking about recently a lot, is how to build a budget, getting over the fears of a budget. Many of us, we want freedom. We want to do what we want to. When we get of age, we want to, I can spend money how I want to. I can buy the shoes and the clothes and the bags, the cars and all these things that I want, but then not understanding the gravity or the responsibility that comes along with that as well. So just getting those essential tools, which the main one is education. The second one is getting a group of individuals around you to help you understand what you're getting into and how to maintain it, knowing the difference from a savings and an emergency fund, knowing that you don't use that emergency fund in order to go on vacation or to take care of the so-called desires that we have for our life, and then knowing the difference between when you use that savings account. Are you using that to get the investment? Are you using that to buy your house? And are you exhausting all of your savings just to buy this house? And then once you're in there, something goes wrong, you have a financial hardship. At that point, you're losing out on everything, and now you're a victim of the system versus being able to be an advocate or being able to take the system advantage of the system for your benefit.
Right, right, right. So you mentioned budgeting, right? So I guess for someone who is like just getting started, what is the best way, or what strategy should they use, or what approach should they take in trying to formulate a budget?
So the first step is to really understand what it is, what a budget is, and then
Right,
being able to create a comprehensive budget. So not just your essentials, not just like your home or your rent, or should I say your mortgage and your rent, not just your utility bills, your car note, but also those what we call flexible or variable spending habits that we have as well, like your groceries, the gas that you put in your car, what it costs for grooming, what is you going to pay for entertainment. Building
right,
a budget that's going to be flexible enough to take care of your desires, but also is rigid enough, and not rigid in the sense of restricting you, but it's still structured there where you still can take care of your necessities in life as well, and not feel as if you're just guessing at this thing. Many of us, we freestyle. We
right,
freestyle when it comes to money. We freestyle when it comes to making decisions, and we feel as if, well, once the pressure is on us, or I make the best decisions when my back is against the wall. When in all actuality, you make the
right,
worst decisions when you don't have all of the tools that you need, when you're not preparing. We all know about the 5 P's: proper preparation prevents poor performance. But many of us, we say it, but then we don't live it. You see what I'm saying?
right,
So we end up performing very poorly on a grand scale, when in all actuality, we have the resources. We talk about generational wealth. We talk about spending in the Black America. I think 2022, $1.6 trillion has passed through our hands.
right.
That number kind of fluctuates year to year. We're
Hmm.
expected by 2025 for it to really hit that 2 trillion mark. So it's not that we don't have the money, it's that we don't have the management skills to it. We don't have the knowledge about what money is, how to use the money, and we don't know where to put the money at for it to continue to grow, or at least stay in our own community as well.
Right, right. So what areas would you recommend people place money? You know, once they get it in, you speak about the right places to put it. What are some of those places that you speak of?
So the first place will be in yourself. The best thing that you can invest in yourself right now, because you need the information. There's multiple courses. There's multiple individuals. Shout out to the EYL network. Shout out to like Wall Street Trapper, the different people who are teaching us financial literacy, giving us awareness of what is going on. But what I've learned for myself is that you can get this information, but if you haven't worked on your mindset, if you
Mm,
haven't got the right people around you that's influencing you the right way, in order to understand what am I getting into. So we can talk about investing, we can talk about home ownership, but if your mindset isn't there, then ultimately you're still not going to commit to the journey that it takes in order to get to true liberation or true freedom in this world today.
Right. So what do you feel is like the biggest block for people getting that right mindset to focus in on, proper financial habits?
The first block is fear. Many of us are fearful of money. We don't understand money. A lot of jargon gets thrown around, and we don't know what it means. So we don't even look in. We don't even look the word up. We don't know what a budget is. We use the word, oh, what we can't afford that. But what does that really mean when you say you can't afford something or something is too expensive? Or what does it mean to be free? What does it mean to have a budget? Like I talk about these words as well. Home ownership, not just buying a home, but owning the home, because you don't own that home if you still have a note. If there's a lien on that property, you don't own it. What is a lien? You should be looking these words up. When you hear things that you don't know about, you should be looking into what that is. When people talk about credit repair, are they talking about credit repair or are they talking about credit fraud? There's two different versions of that. You can't repair your credit overnight. They can tell you, people can tell you about information about how you can get this removed off of your credit, that removed off of your credit, but they don't tell you about if that really was legitimate on your credit. 90 days is put right back on there and you're in a deeper hole that you were before you even started. So we really want to get deeper in understanding of what it is that we're getting into to get over that fear. You only fear what you don't know. Once you're aware of it, just like we talk, where I like to look at it is, once you're in a room that's dark, it's fearful because you don't know what's in that room. As soon as you cut the light switch on, that fear disappears. So if you're not making yourself aware, if you're not educating yourself or getting around individuals who are educated in that and not being afraid to learn or be afraid to be vulnerable. And that's another fear that we have as well, is that we think we need to know it all. You don't need to know it all. There's individuals who have the information. Are you willing to go through the trial of learning? Are you willing to go through that process of learning and discovering what you really need, to get to that next point in your life? And then ultimately, we also deal with, like I said, lack of knowledge. The education system is there. The information is there. We live in the information age. So you got ChatGPT, you got AI, you have all of these tools that can cripple you if you don't know how to use them. They can also propel you forward if you do know how to use them, but you can be afraid of it. You can be afraid, oh, technology going to take my job. Well, it really won't take your job if you're putting yourself in a position to understand how this tool can benefit you. So they have apps that can help you build a budget. It'll tell you what's going on with your spending, how much you're spending on subscriptions, how to get rid of these subscriptions. When you find, like I said, what I know for myself, you get these subscriptions on here. Next thing you know, it may have a free trial for 30 days, 90 days, but you don't go back and cancel it. Now, when you're really ready to make a decision or make a purchase, now it's gonna cost you more money because you didn't know that you had $300-400 worth of subscriptions that's coming out every month, and you didn't put it in your budget. So you think you have enough money, but you don't. And then lastly, I'll talk about the percentages. When we talk about home ownership, the bank may want you to have a 36% DTI when it comes to your mortgage payment. But on actuality, when you talk about affording a home, your mortgage payment should be 25% of what you make a month. So if you make $4,000 a month, your mortgage payment should be no more than $1,000 a month, because you want to prevent yourself from falling behind. So if something does happen, you have a little bit of a buffer there that you can have to save you. When you talk about your car payment, it should be no more than 10% of what you make a month. But like I said, the bank or the lenders or the car dealership or everyone that's advertising and promoting to us are not going to tell us these things. They're just going to tell you what it takes to qualify. Qualifying and actually being able to afford something is two separate different things.
Yeah. So I know you speak about, people, this is the information age, and folks have to go out and seek out the knowledge. But a lot of us come from communities where reading and literacy isn't really promoted, right? So how do we overcome that challenge?
So that's where I look at, like, even for me. So I've been in the mortgage industry for 15 years. I came into the industry at 18. I worked for a third-party servicer. And what I've noticed over the time, that no one takes the time out to teach those who don't know. So because you can qualify, you may have a 700-800 credit score, but if you still don't know what to do with that, people take advantage of you. Now, when we talk about this system that we're in, or the way of things that's going on right now. We're advertised to, we're promoted to, information is sold to us or told to us, but it's not taught to us. So that's where I kind of lean on those who have the information. It's our responsibility to give this information and provide workshops and get out in the community. And then also how we present it needs to be digestible as well. Like you spoke on where, people may not want to read. Okay, well then we need to make some videos. Just like you have a book that teaches the children how to do it, but it's a way that they can digest it. It's not just here's all the jargon and then you go figure it out on your own. Let me put it in an allegorical way or in a storytelling way so that you can, okay, this does relate to me. This does make sense. And it's something that I can do practically, that I can take on into life. And then also it starts with the parents. Many of us, we have the information, but then we don't share it with each other. But we got to start somewhere. And it's our responsibility as parents, as leaders, as those who have nephews and nieces, and we have to go get that information and then share it. Many of us hoard information. We think that, okay, well, if I know it all, then if I have all the information and I can't sell it, then it's not going to benefit me. But the whole thing is that we working together. Unity is our biggest or our strongest superpower. So if we're coming together and understanding that if if one of us has the information and we spread that about, the kids pick it up better than the parents sometimes. So let's have events where the kids want to come around as well. Let's make it something of fun. And it shouldn't be that when we think of business, when we think of investing, that this is just an adult sport. We see now where there's children getting into entrepreneurship at a young age. There's information that's out there where you can pay your child through your business. It's tax advantages to having your children involved in your business. So it's really just making it a family oriented way, but also is a responsibility on us, is a responsibility on those who are promoting money. We'll get to it as well, but when we talk about the influence, getting in the right environments, and we have to make those safe environments and those family friendly environments where teaching becomes fun again. And it's not just me just pointing the finger, telling us what we should do, what we shouldn't do, or stop spending money on this, stop spending money on that. Let's provide alternatives that make sense, and then also present it in a way that is digestible. What I find as well is that what we do, especially in the conscious community, at one point, the conscious community, you almost felt embarrassed if you didn't know what an ankh was. You thought you feel embarrassed if you didn't know Black power. You didn't understand this terminology. But when it comes to now, we need to make sure that we're constantly putting it in a position where it's a digestible, constantly putting it in a place where we want people to grow from this information, do the research, make research fun as well, giving these little homework assignments. We don't mean I like homework, but if we can make it where there's an incentive behind it, not just like monetary incentive, but an incentive to get around these people that we look up to, and then really hold everybody accountable. That's really the main thing, is that we need to start holding our leaders accountable. We need to start holding our role models accountable, and then we need to hold ourselves accountable, because we think that maybe age is a obstacle or a boundary. Or I'm too old to learn. I'm too old to teach. I'm too young to learn this information. We begin to say that, okay, this grown folks talk. You don't need to be in these conversations. No, they need to be in that conversation, and we can't be embarrassed of saying what we don't know, because if you don't know, then there's an opportunity for growth. One of the sayings that I have for myself is think, learn, grow. If you're thinking, you can find an opportunity to learn. If you're learning, you're creating an opportunity to grow. And anything that's not growing is dying. So we want to make sure that we're growing our mindset, growing our knowledge base, growing our network, growing our relationships, growing our money. We want to make sure that we're doing active things, not just thinking about it or talking about it, but what are we doing every day to be able to grow? And when we think about money, we think about interest. There's compound interest. So just when we think about investing $1, like Cash App allows you to buy a stock, you can put in a few dollars and you can start seeing it grow. And many of us need to see the practicality. We don't believe everything people say, which is good. You shouldn't just believe what people tell you, because they're only telling you the truth that benefits them at the time. So we do want to listen to what people have to say, but then we want to study the actions. We want to also see, okay, let me test this out, not jump out of there and just invest all of our money. There's been situations where people took their last bit of money, invested in something, and then it didn't go well. Now you're angry, you bitter towards the process. I don't like finances. I don't like investing. I don't like home ownership based off of your personal experience. But that
Right.
personal experience does not make that the law. It doesn't make it the end game. So just being willing to open yourself up to be a student, to learn about what you want to get into, and then learning about what other people are going through as well. Because where other people have bumped their head, that is a sign or a signal for you to say, okay, maybe I don't want to do that, but what can I learn from it so I can grow into that next stage?
Yeah, but one thing find that a lot of people, a lot of us are
Yes, sir.
egotistical, right? I know you mentioned the fact that like it's two extremes, right? It's like I know everything, so I don't need to lean on anybody else for any other information, or I don't know anything and I'm embarrassed to even ask the question, or I
Right,
don't even know what questions to ask.
right,
you know so from those two extremes, and even like in our community, I remember I was doing a workshop a few months ago for some young people, and I was talking about the stock market and investing. And as I'm talking, I'm like, this is information that was never presented to this population of people.
right.
you know and and sometimes, like as you mentioned, you could come with all kind of big words and stuff and throw people off, right? And they become again overwhelmed with what you're trying to present to them. But at the same time, then you have other folks that feel that I know it all. I don't need any help. So,
Mhm.
what's the best approach to reach our community, right? Cause like right now, there's a whole big what's the word I'm thinking about? Like financial literacy is a hot topic right now,
Right,
right? And there's a lot of momentum behind it.
right.
And so, what's the best approach to reach that inner city urban community that hasn't been exposed to this stuff before?
I've seen you had Mickey Facts on the podcast,
Yeah.
and I believe that music is the vehicle that will help get our young people in. It
Hmm.
also exposes the older generations that the children will receive it, that they will are open to learning about it. So I think music will be the first thing.
Okay.
For some of our young kids, that's their role model. That's what they're looking at. They're
Hmm.
looking at the entertainers. They're looking at the sports figures. And then they also are looking at what the sports figures are doing. Just like recently, where I want to say within a few years, you got the NIL deals, and we're
Hmm.
seeing younger brothers get, opportunities now to benefit or capitalize on their success at an early age. So
Right.
it does give motivation for our children in that generation to be able to want to strive to improve in finances and then understand that. But like you spoke about, that arrogance comes in. Well, once we get
Hmm.
the money, now we like, well, I got the money. I don't need to listen to you now. I'm making more money than my
Right.
teacher. I'm making more money than the so-called leaders. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
I think we just need to make sure we continue to propel or promote those good examples. We know
Hmm.
negativity, spreads a lot faster than positivity, but that's
Right.
only because we don't push it hard enough. If enough of us push the positive messaging, we push the positive rappers, the positive content in the rappers. Because I'm not even going to say the positive rappers, because there's a lot of good information in some of this so-called gangster rap or drill rap and things like that. They're still giving us the information, which we know hip hop was
Hmm.
used and should and still is used as a way to give us a snapshot or a preview of what the pulse is in the world, what's going
Right.
on in the neighborhood. So when we do see little glimpses of that, we need to make sure that we're promoting the good out of it, settling on the best part. That's one thing that we learned as well in the nation, is that you want to settle on the best part. You don't condemn a dirty glass. You just set a clean glass right next to one and then let them make a decision as well. So I think
Hmm.
it goes back to what I said earlier. It's our responsibility to be accountable for what we can do. We're not
Right.
going to, at this stage in our life right now, we're not going to over promote or out promote the negative or those who may have an agenda to push negativity on us. But where we can, like having podcasts like this, where we can show a different light, show a different example that we can put next to these other examples, and people start making decisions based off of their own logic. If you tell
Right.
somebody that they have a stain on their shirt, their first thing maybe is, "No, I ain't got no stain on my shirt." But then when you show them a clean shirt, then they're gonna say,
Hmm.
"My shirt is a little." it's a little dingy. You know what I mean? So I
Right.
think if we spend less time talking about what's going wrong in the world and spend more time talking about what's going good, like I said, we talking about financial literacy is a big movement right now. It's a big push, and there is a small percentage that looks like a big percentage that is teaching us the wrong ways of financial literacy. We got a lot of so-called gurus and experts who have been caught up in certain things, but we don't want to be name dropping and talking about those examples. We want to spend more time talking about those who are really doing the work, those who are really promoting it, and give them the proper light, because those are the ones that's going to help us get out of this hole that we've been in for so long.
Right. So I know you mentioned, the music as one vehicle to use to try to promote, these topics surrounding financial literacy and entrepreneurship and self improvement.
Right.
But what are your thoughts on, people speak about social media, right? How can that be leveraged, right, to help educate our people?
Oh, well, I mean, we love attention. We love
Mhm.
to be able to show ourselves and show our highlight reel. Social media, especially right now, is pretty much everyone showing their good side. And
Right.
I think we can leverage that in a way that we can show more examples of how to do it the right way. Now, of course, everything in moderation. If you're just spending all your time on social media, then of course you have no time to build this knowledge, because like we talk about as well, negativity spreads faster. You have individuals who may have good intentions, but they use the algorithm to their advantage as well. And we know that
Yeah.
the algorithm is going to promote the negative things first. It's going to promote the sexual things first. It's going to promote everything that appeals to the desires first. But
Yeah.
we just have to continue to put it out there. Like me personally, I'm a content creator, and I teach people about content creation as well. That's kind of like an offside of what I do. And one major key with that is consistency. One major key of that is making sure that you not only have quality, but you do need quantity, because the algorithm is not going to push what you have to everyone. You have to make sure that you're putting enough out there on a consistent basis that even if it's being quote unquote shadow banned, there's only so much you can do without exposing that you are being picked on, in a sense, on the
Right.
algorithm side. And then as well as with social media is that we don't take everything so serious. We still need to do research. Um, YouTube is the number one search engine right now. TikTok is right behind that. It's
Mhm.
bigger than so-called Google, even though Google owns YouTube. But when
Right.
you think about that, we have to make sure us as those who are trying to teach, those are striving to teach and educate our people, that we're doing the right things. We're learning from those who are having success, even if they're not pushing a positive message. There's something that we can learn as content creators and teachers and developers of thought as well from them. How do we title our words? How do we do our thumbnails? How do we put this message out there again in a digestible way so that the kids see it? And I don't say kids because we're not raising ghosts, but as the children see it, you know what I mean? Being
Right.
able to put it in a way that they can digest it, and then also, like I talked about before, make it fun. You want to make sure that we're not just teaching, because many children don't like to sit in school and have someone just talk at them all the time. Make it
Right.
engaging. How can we make it practical? How can we show, okay, if we want to talk about the new Jordans coming out, let's understand the science behind it. Let's understand,
Mhm.
okay, what does it take for these Jordans to be manufactured? Who's doing the manufacturing? Because a lot of children are interested in what they're interested in, but are we talking
Right.
about that? Are we talking about Roblox? Are we talking about the chains that's come out when you see rappers wearing chains, and understanding what is a diamond, what makes a diamond precious, what makes it valuable, what makes gold valuable. Why did they choose platinum over gold? Why did they choose the emerald cut over the princess cut? We have to make sure that we go to not just tell them what we want them to know, but find out what they want to know and then present it to them. When we think about advertising and marketing, if we're talking to everybody, we're talking to nobody. So we all can't get every aspect of this generation. We all can't speak to the older generation. Some of us, we have a good way of talking to the kids, to the children. I got to catch myself too. We have a way of being able to present ourselves in a way that attracts the children to us, that attracts the young men and women to us, that attracts the older generation to us as well. That says, okay, maybe I can teach my children this. Maybe I can teach my nieces and nephew this, or my grandchildren this, that, and the third. And I think social media has us, it has us hooked, You know, it is something that keeps us busy, especially when you're making content. It's something that you do get wrapped up in as well. But as long as we're using that time wisely, because a part of money management is time management as well. And just using all of these tools, like social media is a tool, artificial intelligence is a tool, the music is a tool, education is a tool. But we have to remember that we're the asset, the people, the human capital. That's really where the money is. And in understanding that's where our unity is going to come from, is us uniting as people, and then moving or migrating people from the social media into workshops like you're talking about, into initiatives in the community, getting out in the community and promoting that more so than keeping them on the phone and just trapped into this, keep scrolling, feeding the dopamine that they have in their mind, in their brain, and feeding that. But let's get them the information, then take them off the social media into doing some practical things that they can do right now. Not making it like a pie in the sky type of thing where like in the future you can invest when you get older. No, you can invest right now. And then how can you do it? Like I said, practical information, not just theories and concepts. That's really what I want to get to.
Right. So, what got you started on this journey of this financial literacy, personal development? How did you get like what was the motivation that triggered you to get into this path?
So really for myself, I found how much I didn't know. I found out how much many of our people don't know. A stat that kind of really triggered me. I'll put it that way. It triggered me when I looked at foreclosure. We take up 80% of those in foreclosure. So we're talking about the vast majority of those who are losing their homes is us, the Black and brown community. When I look at home ownership rates from 1950 to now, it's flatline. And when we're talking about medicine or medical, in the medical field, if you flatline, that means you're dead. So if we've been at, I want to say it's 44.6%, I think now it's like 44.9% since 1950. We're talking about when segregation was live and well. And now when we're supposed to be free, we still have the same home ownership rate as then. So that means there's clearly a gap there. You know, we spending a lot of money, $1.6 trillion just 2022. If we really got into the numbers from 1950 to now, I'm pretty sure we wouldn't need reparations. You see what I'm saying? We already have received it if you want to look at it from that standpoint. So when I look at the certain stats, and then in 2022, 11.3 million homeowners were either behind, not homeowners, I just say families in general were behind at least 3 months or more. So we're talking about 2.8% or 2.8 million, excuse me, homeowners are behind 3 months or more. 8.8 million renters were behind 3 months or more. There's really a reason for that. That doesn't just happen by happenstance. You know, we can blame, oh, it's the pandemic. But many people who went through the pandemic and fell behind, they were already behind before the pandemic happened. They were already at the brink of a financial hardship before the pandemic. The pandemic just put the final nail in the coffin. So it just showed me, and then also being in the mortgage industry for 15 years, talking to people on the phones, and they just not understanding the basic of what is an escrow account, what is involved in my escrow, how are my taxes and insurance being paid when I make a mortgage payment. Why don't I know how much is going to the principal? I didn't pay all these mortgage payments, but I'm seeing that my principal balance hasn't changed much. We don't understand that, but yet we're looking to see, okay, I didn't get my 1098, so I can go ahead and write my interest off, but you haven't paid your mortgage. You know what I mean? So it's like certain elements of basic, but what I would assume is basic. And when you're in the industry, you feel like a lot of this stuff is supposed to be common knowledge, but then you realize that even the individuals that you're talking to on the phone don't understand what they're telling you. They're going off a script. They're going off what they heard from a meeting. They're going off of what they're told to tell you. They're going off the options that benefit the institution that they work for. They're not giving you the real practical knowledge that you need right now. And one thing that I strive to do and was striving to do while I was working for these different institutions was just to provide the information. Yeah, I may work in pre-foreclosure, I may work in loss mitigation, but some of these things you need to know that customer service could probably tell you. I'm going to tell you. I'm not going to keep sending you into, let me transfer you over here, let me transfer you over there. It's my responsibility as an individual, and specifically as a man, to be able to go get this information and then provide it to you. Because I've noticed in those conversations, people say, "Oh man, I've been transferred 3, 4, 5 times and no one answered my question till now." So that was more of a light bulb for me. I kind of discovered that really maybe 7 or 8 years ago. When you keep hearing the same thing over and over again, that's a sign. You know what I mean? That's not just like a one case scenario. When you constantly hear, I never knew that. I didn't know that that was even possible. I made a post on Instagram about 2 or 3 weeks ago, just speaking about how to pay your mortgage off faster. If you were to just put $200 to your principal a month, you're able to cut your mortgage payment down by 7 to 8 years, or save yourself $44,000 in interest. If you can budget yourself and put $1,000 extra a month to your principal, you can cut your mortgage in half. So you're talking about a 30-year mortgage, making it a 12 to 15-year mortgage. Now you really can own that property. You know what I mean? But we don't know, then you're just going to keep paying your mortgage payment. No one tells you that when you pay rent, that's the most you're going to pay on that contract or that lease. But when you pay your mortgage, that mortgage statement is telling you what the minimum that they need. So if you didn't know that and you think I'm paying my mortgage, I'm just going to keep paying my mortgage, you're giving them free money when you get to the end of your 30-year mortgage, if you haven't refinanced, because many of us, we end up refinancing, need to pull cash out, the equity and all of that kind of stuff. But if you just pay on a regular basis every month, you pay your minimum amount or your mortgage payment amount, you're going to end up paying for that house 2 or 3 times over.
Wow.
That's money that you could have invested and had 2 or 3 properties, but we didn't know that. Many of us get into FHA loans. I'm reading a book right now, which I had to bring it, The Color of Law. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I got that.
Understanding where FHA came from and what their goal was before integration and before all of this, it's like, okay, why at one point FHA didn't want to give anything to Black people. They wanted us not to be in certain neighborhoods. They wouldn't even loan monies or allow banks or institutions or lenders to lend out money to African Americans. But now in 2023, we take up a good portion of those FHA loans. Now it's pushed on us. Okay, you're putting 3.5% down when we don't know that putting down the lease amount. Sometimes we get find loans where you got down payment assistance, you pay nothing down. If you're not willing to make that commitment, the chances of you defaulting increases. So the less that you put up front, the more likelihood that you're going to fall behind, which then increase the likelihood you're going to fall into foreclosure. Like I was saying earlier, we take up 80% of those in foreclosure. And guess what the majority of those loans are? FHA loans. So we and that's when I don't like to beat realtors up, you know, and it's good to get into real estate. But the average realtor in the industry, 87% of realtors are out of the industry in 5 years. The average homeowner, when they buy their first home, they're out of that home within 5 years. So that means once you got out of your first home, that same person that helped you or encouraged you and motivated you to buy that home is no longer in the industry. So who you going to go to? Now you got to start all over again, build a new relationship with somebody else, and then hopefully they're going to look out for your best interest to encourage you, which comes back to those keys of understanding what's the first step. Get the education, do the research yourself. Don't rely on those people who are getting a commission for you buying a house. You need to rely on those who are educating. You need to then get the information from those educated and then do the knowledge yourself. You research what they tell you, because there's only so much I can tell somebody because I don't know your knowledge base. I don't know what you came from, but I'm going to give you practical information. Now you go put it into practice. You go do some more research and then come back and ask some questions, because most of us who have the information can only tell you what you ask us. We have so much we want to tell you, but we don't want to overwhelm you with all the information. We don't want to deter you by telling you, okay, 80% of us in foreclosure. Now you feel like, okay, I don't want to own a house because I don't want to go to foreclosure. But if you're not aware of that information, then at that point, you're still going to be in that fear mindset. You're not going to grow. You're not going to expose yourself to the home ownership aspect of life. You're not going to expose yourself to money management. We deal with, and I was on a podcast last week, and we talked about the different myths of money. And we talk about how, it's a myth to believe that you work in a job, just solely working a job, you're going to become rich. It's a myth to believe that just buying a home means that you're going to be free, meaning that you really own the house. You don't really own the house until you pay it off. There's a myth behind having good credit. Having good credit is great, but if you don't know how to manage that credit, you're really just putting yourself in another form of slavery. You're putting yourself in another form of imprisonment, because now you have all of these bills coming in. Yeah, you keeping them up on time, but you're still paying interest to somebody that is eating 2 or 3 times over what you really purchased that, or maybe purchase a car, or purchase a home, or even these store credit cards. We don't know that, okay, just because you're getting 15% off at the register when you sign up for that credit card, but the interest rate is 9, 10, 12%. Now you take what you bought for those shoes that you went to Nike and got that credit card for. You could have bought 2 or 3 shares in Nike. You know what I'm saying? That would have been something that you could have grow for you for a long term. And then you think about money management and like your phone bill and things like that. We tend to lease the phone. We don't own the phone, so you buying it and now they're incrementally taking it out or putting it in your phone bill. And ultimately, you could have bought 2 or 3 iPhones for that price. But it's just knowing what to ask. And that's one thing I encourage individuals to do, to ask questions. Don't be afraid to question those who are giving you information. Don't be afraid to challenge the thought or challenge the status quo. If you're not ready to buy a home, how do you know when you're ready to buy a home? Is when like we talked about before, when you're looking for a home, you want to really see what's the most that I can put down. I want to get a conventional loan. I don't want to get an FHA loan. I don't want to get a no doc loan or a no credit loan. All of these so-called advantages are only for those who know what they're getting into. If you're getting a FHA loan where you're putting a minimum amount down, 3.5%, but you don't know, you're not having the goal of being able to pay it off early, you're paying PMI insurance, which is private mortgage insurance. Now, what that is something that's going to help protect the bank if you were to fall behind, but they still can foreclose. So not only are they going to get paid back from you defaulting on the loan, they then are going to take the property for you so they can sell the property again. So now they pretty much have selling, they're making 2 times what you was going to pay. They're making that back. They're going to make the money back from PMI, and then they're also going to sell your home and get something else for that as well. So we just have to really get behind the scenes of what we're getting into, not just looking at the advertisement, not just seeing that for sale sign on that house and thinking, oh, I'm gonna buy this house. But do you understand the responsibility that comes along with that as well?
Peace. Are you looking for a way to teach your kids about money management and responsibility? Look no further than the Green Light Card. The Green Light Card is a debit card for kids that parents can manage through an app, giving you complete control over where and how much your child spends. With the Green Light Card, you can start teaching your kids valuable financial lessons while earning rewards at the same time. For more information about Green Light and to get started, please click the link in the show notes below. Thank you.
Today is a great day to start your own podcast. Whether you're looking for a new marketing channel, have a message you want to share with the world, or just think it would be fun to have your own talk show, podcasting is an easy, inexpensive, and fun way to expand your reach online. Buzzsprout is hands down the easiest and best way to launch, promote, and track your podcast. Your show can be online and listed in all the major podcast directories like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google products, and more within minutes of finishing your recording. Podcasting isn't hard when you have the right partners, and the team at Buzzsprout is passionate about helping you succeed. Join over 100,000 podcasters already using Buzzsprout to get their message out to the world. Let's create something together. Follow the link in the show notes and let Buzzsprout know that we sent you, and that will get you a $20 Amazon gift card if you sign up for a paid plan and help support our show. Thank you very much, and let's be great podcasting together. Peace. Malik's First Job, Financial Principles for Teens, is an excellent resource to get your children started on understanding the basics of financial literacy. This book, which is set in Brownsville, Brooklyn, about a young man who gets his first job and then shortly thereafter sits down with his dad to learn how to manage his money. There are several topics that are covered within this work, such as paying yourself first, disciplining your spending, knowing the difference between an asset and a liability, creating multiple sources of income, as well as the importance of being charitable. So again, if you want to get your children started on understanding finance and becoming responsible adults, we highly recommend that you purchase the book, Malik's First Job, Financial Principles for Teens. So please visit maliksfirstjob.com to get more information. Peace.
So, all the stuff that you speak about, the research and being able to, read and check out information, the average person, because, educating yourself, like school is like a full-time job,
Yes, sir.
right? And educating yourself, the average person who works a 9 to 5, has a family, has to cook and do all these different responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
By the time somebody comes home, they're like mentally exhausted and they can't focus in on trying to educate themselves,
Mm-hmm.
right? So how do people, I guess, who have that, who say they have that barrier, how do they overcome that hurdle?
So you start with just asking questions. I think where we have to really begin to get comfortable with is asking questions, and not feeling as if there are. I talk about there's no such thing as dumb questions, because if you can find the answer, that means that question could be looked at as dumb because you could have looked. But there really is no such thing as dumb questions if you don't know. If you don't know, you don't know, and it's okay to not know, but it's not okay to not ask for help. It's not okay to suffer in silence. It's not okay to be ignorant. Ignorance is not bliss, because somebody is profiting off of your ignorance, especially in our community. Just like they say, ignorance of the law is no excuse. You still gonna get that speeding ticket whether you saw the sign or not. So you
Right.
want to make sure you ask questions. So the first thing I would say, that what you want to do is you want to look at your mortgage statement. Any word that you see on your mortgage statement you don't understand, go look it up. If you don't have a dictionary, Google it. If you're not able to Google it, then ask somebody. What does mortgage mean? What does escrow mean? What does interest mean? What does like I said, PMI? What is PMI? What is private mortgage insurance? What does FHA mean? Where did FHA come from? What is a conventional loan? You want to ask those type of questions. The first thing you can do, you're looking at your credit card statement. Just look up the words that you see. That's going to trigger your brain to start formulating questions. And when you look at as well, like when you're falling behind and you're in collections, you want to know, what is a settlement? What is a payment arrangement? What is a forbearance? What is a deferment? What is a modification? What is a refinance? These questions should be something that you should be comfortable asking. And not necessarily, you don't have to ask somebody. Ask the computer. Put it in there. Type it in there and say, what is this? What is that? That's where you start, and then you just roll into it. When we talk about overwhelming ourselves, and we can do that. You can get something called over analysis paralysis, right? Where you're taking in all this information and you're like, where do I start? You start where you are. You start with, okay, what do I know about this subject? What don't I know about this subject? And then you start taking down and peeling those layers back from there. Once you start looking up questions, then you need to start seeking out assistance. So like I said, I'm a foreclosure coach. And what that really means is that I help individuals who are falling behind. For one, you need to get clear on what's your goals. What is your goal when you buy a house? Are you buying a house just to say you have a house? Or are you looking to expand and grow your family? We many times we don't understand what is a title, what is a deed. Look it up. Look those words up. It's not really for me to just tell you what it is, because if you're talking to me, I'm going to ask you to do some research. I'm going to ask you to look it up for yourself, and then you tell me what it means. And at that point, I can now work with you. We want to make sure that we're open and receiving information, but not being so afraid to do the research ourselves. Like I said, if you don't know where to go, then you ask somebody, where do I start? And I will always tell you to start just looking up words. Words are important. I'll just show you this as well. The Black Dictionary, the Dictionary of Law, right?
Oh, yeah.
You want to understand words. So when you get your contract, when you get that promissory note, when you get that mortgage, look up those words in the note. Look up those words.
Yeah.
What does an agreement mean? What's the difference between an agreement and a contract? What's the difference between a note and a deed? What's the difference between a note and a mortgage? One of them ties you to owning the property, and the other one ties you to the debt. Now, again, we're gonna leave this for the audience. You go look it up and tell me, or put in the comments, what's the difference between a deed and a note? What's the difference between a loan and excuse me, what's the difference between a modification and a refinance? You have to look these things up and then see for yourself, because the real goal here is for us to become independent. If we're going to be independent, that means we're not dependent on others. Many of us are dependent on the system, and we think that that's a good thing. Yeah, in a certain circumstance or a temporary circumstance, yeah, it is a good thing to have somebody that's going to look out for you. But at one point, and Wall Street Trapper says this all the time, you allow them to feed you, then you allowing them to starve you. So what do you do when they cut it off? Like, we think
Right.
about the whole thing with the PPP loans and all of that. We run away from the research on how to apply for that. We also do research on how to do it the right way. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I just encourage us all to just look up the word. Main thing is just looking up the words. Words really do have power, especially in this country. Words
Yes.
are very important. What you see in front of you is not there just because. It's really a reason and an aim and purpose behind everything. And we need to also have a reason and aim and purpose behind what we do, what we read. Get away from just consuming only entertainment. I love to listen to a podcast too, but I've gotten to a point now where I only want to listen to podcasts of things I don't know about. I want to learn about different, I want to learn about science and understanding about the beginnings of life, and understand what's going on with the weather and all these type of things. That's good to know about that. And then when I hear
Right.
something that I never heard of, I'm gonna pause that podcast and I'm gonna go do some research on my own. That's
Yeah.
why I lead with saying that I'm a student first. I'm always looking to get some more information. It's things like, I'm only on chapter 2 of this book. And just in 2 chapters of this book, I've learned way more than I thought I knew. So even that, never stop learning. Never stop learning. Like I said, think, learn, grow. You want to make sure that you always are working towards growing your knowledge base. Even in the career that you're in, look into what does your 401k really mean for you. Your 401k, there's ways that you can purchase a house with your 401k. You should be leveraging that 401k, not necessarily just putting money in there and putting money in there. Okay, they matching me, so I'm gonna put 6% here and they matching that. That's great. But you also need to look behind the scenes and say, okay, when I get to that 59 and a half or 60 years old, how much of this are they going to take? They're going to take their fees and you're going to have some taxes and things involved in that. So that percentage that you may have gained, you lose. So in the meantime, what are you going to do? Are you going to leverage it? Are you going to borrow against it? Are you going to withdraw? You have to make those decisions for yourself and say what is the goal behind this? Why am I putting money in, saving for the future? What am I doing outside of just what and my employer is doing, or what my Roth IRA is doing? What am I going to do as well to protect myself? And then also group economics. That's really what I wanted to speak on as well. Is that we have to learn from other cultures. Other cultures work together. Other cultures live together. They'll bunk up. You know what I'm saying? And they're not afraid to have 3 or 4 families in a house, or 3 or 4 families come together to purchase a house so that everyone can truly afford it. We're not just trying to be independent in the sense that, okay, I'm an independent man, I'm an independent woman, but you're doing it by yourself. And then when you have a financial hardship, you by yourself. We need to get more into group economics. We need to get more into unifying our minds together, getting 8 to 10 like-minded people together. Let's build a business so that we can understand what's going on, not putting everything into our personal name. Find out what we need to do to get things into a business name, forming corporations that we can use. What is a trust? You want to just really try to figure out study everything. That's one thing I've been working on as well. Study it all. There's no limit to the amount of knowledge that you can get. And even when you think you got it all, you realize you still got so much way room to improve on that as well. But it's mainly just like not believing the stereotypes that it's nothing going to work out for you because you're black. There's people that are winning, and we have to focus on what's working, not what's not working. Let's not focus on what we can't do. Let's focus on what we can do. And many of us, we find ways to get creative when it comes to side hustles and making money under the table and all that. Okay, that's great. Now, what are we gonna do with that money? You see what I'm saying? Are we getting money and buying things to show other people that don't have that we have it? Or are we getting these things in order to improve our life? Are we getting these assets in order to pass down to the next generation? Are we getting these assets, or are we getting this knowledge to be able to share it with someone else who doesn't have the knowledge? And I think if we turn from looking from an aspect of trying to be in the forefront of everyone and just showing, hey, this is what I did, and get more behind the scenes and teach everyone who doesn't know. I think we'll get further along in our journey for individual. And I landed on this. The best way to get what you want is to help somebody else get what they want. And that comes in every aspect, whether we're talking about if you need some food, the best way to help somebody else is maybe I need to give somebody a ride. Maybe if I give them a ride to the grocery store, they'll buy me some groceries too.
Right.
We just have to have the right intent behind what we're doing. Not being afraid to do the research on the things that are right, because we have no problem doing the research on the things that are not right. We have no problem trying to figure out what the price of this and that and the third that's going to cause us to get into prison and cause us to get into trouble. But we need to have that same energy that we have for the negative, that we have more than that energy for the positive, but at a minimum, have the same energy that we have for the negative that we have for the positive. And at that point, we can start moving that needle as well. So I landed on that.
Yeah. So you mentioned group economics, right? And that's been something that's been spoken about for many years,
Yes.
right? If we go back, I'm sure before, the Prophet Noble Drew Ali spoke about it.
Yes, sir.
Marcus Garvey, Honorable Elijah Muhammad,
Right.
Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, right before he passed, was speaking economics.
Right.
On up to today, right? We spoke about the need for us to come together economically and work together. And again, we may have had like small pockets of people who've done it, but how can we get the broader population to get on that same accord?
I think what we need to do is like we talked about earlier, promoting more examples of what is really working. So me, like I said, I'm in the Nation of Islam, so this is all it's about is group economics, and then not being so critical or judgmental of those who are working and striving to do it. We tend to think that it needs to be $1 million idea. No, let's just start with the $100 idea. Let's start with the $10 idea. Let's get 8 to 10 people to come together with $10 and let's invest in something and grow it from there. And then we just need to put and promote the things that are working. If you don't have the $1 million idea, then let's get around and encourage and support those who do. So we had the Final Call newspaper. It's $2. And Killer Mike he talked about it before. He said he talked about it on the podcast with Matt Hoffa on the My Expert Opinion. There's plenty of examples around us. We just don't want to see them. We don't want to look at them sometimes. We act like we're blind to the fact of what's really going on out here. We act like it's not happening. A stat that I want to speak to, and it's been circulating a while, where the black dollar only stays in the black community 6 hours. Whereas in other communities, it's staying there for days, sometimes months. The Asian community, I want to say, it's a few weeks that they keep that money in their community. We just have to be able to get past the point of believing that if it's black manufactured, that is low quality. That's a mindset thing. That's not a reality. I personally went amongst myself, like as I was cleaning up my social media, because I realized that you following people, think you supporting people, you see what they do, you following them, but then you start to believe what they post, and a lot of people talk black, they talk like they are about supporting one another, but then you see after a while that the true agenda comes about where they're just trying to be selfish. Now we can't be ignorant to the fact that not all of us are unified. Not all of us have the goal of getting the black community out of this hole that we're in. But when you do see someone that is, support that brother or sister, support them in what they're doing. I see a lot of black designers coming up now. Go spend that $250 with them on their shoes. We've given so much money away to other communities. We've given so much money away to communities who have put black figureheads in the forefront of it. Let's take a time and invest in the brothers and sisters that are striving to make their own, do their own. Go get the black soap. Go get the if you do get weaves and wigs, go get it from that sister. Go get the bundles from her before you go to the beauty market with other cultures. You know what I mean? We just have to be not so critical. And I really encourage us to not judge one another, because we all have to start somewhere. no one knows of a black distribution company for music, right? So when you see brothers like LaRussell, who's doing his thing as a proud to pay type of thing, like Nipsey was talking about a lot of, when he's like, okay, make an offer, you tell me how much you think this worth. We have to be willing to back our words up with action. You know what I mean? Put our money where our mouth is. We are very critical of one another, but when it's time for the rubber to hit the road, ain't nobody there. You know what I mean? So
Right.
when you see it, and I'll circle it back on this, when you see someone striving to do for our community, when you see someone striving to build or collaborate with other black and brown individuals, support it. You know, that's really the biggest thing, is that don't look for it to be perfect. Just look for
Right.
it to be progressive. And if we stop thinking about perfection, we won't be able to see so many of the flaws that we know are there. We look, how far are we from slavery? How far are we away from where we came from? You know, we talk when we were on top of civilizations. How far are we from that? So we want to
Right.
really be realistic, but also optimistic in the sense that, okay, this is where that brother is right now. He may not be getting it from a black manufacturer now, but if I support him, that's helping him get closer to developing that distribution himself. If I just support that sister in what she's doing right now, eventually she'll have her own factory. Eventually she'll have her own team, and she'll be able to go get things from different distributors, or be able to move and progressively own her own vertical integration. You know what I mean? But we have to be willing to start where we're at. We have to be willing to not be so critical, because many of those who are critical, I ask that question is, what are you doing? You know,
Right.
many people were critical of the Million Man March. Oh, what happened with the money? Where did this go? Where did that go? Well, what are you doing with your money? And then then you can say, okay, if you are doing something so progressive that you're able to be critical of someone else, then we probably, many of the times, we just need to be quiet and just support, versus worrying about where did the money go, because no one asks what the Red Cross, what they do with the money. No one asks, all these other so-called foundations and charities, what they're doing with the money. They just give it to them. They give them the money. They give it to the Boys and Girls Club. They give it to United Way. They just give the money away because they've been doing it for so long. They don't
Right.
know that, they only have required to give, 60 to 40% of that money back to the community. So what's going on with the rest of it? You know what I mean? So we don't ask those type of questions, but when it comes to someone that's black, we want to know where all the money went to. We want to know what they did. We know this, oh, they got a new suit on. They must have used that money to get a new suit. You don't know what they did. And it really shouldn't even matter. You don't want to see your brother look good. You don't want your sister to look good, because they're actually moving, they're progressive, they're doing something. You know what I mean? So I would just encourage us to not be so critical and just support. We blindly support those who have an agenda against us. So we should be able to, I want to say blindly support, but we should be more willing to support those who actually are actively in the community, are actively improving themselves and others around them as well. And just look for those examples, not just waiting on it to fall out the sky, not just waiting on someone to just tell us, okay, yeah, you need to support them over there. You know who's in your community and what they're doing. And if they may just have an iPhone shop. Go in there and get your iPhone fixed with them. You don't have to go straight to Apple. Go talk to the brother that got the iPhone spot at the corner, or who may be doing it out of his house. Go shop with him. You know what I mean? And then lastly, what I'll say, when we talk about group economics and how do you make a change in that, look at, in your community, what do you have and what don't you have? The best way to start a business or to get into entrepreneurship is solving a problem. So me personally, what I notice is that no one's educating people on home ownership outside of the big institutions. Many people are intimidated by the big institutions. They don't know the jargon, they don't know. So I'm going to provide what needs to be done. I talked about budgeting. I have a free budget calculator, which you can go to my Instagram or you can text me and you can get it, 804-221-6226. You can get a budget calculator to help you get started on budgeting. So we just have to make sure that we're supporting those who actually want to be supported, not just those who just want to benefit or I ain't gonna say piggyback, but veggie back on those who are losing or ignorant of what's going on as well. So I'll leave it at that. I think we start with group economics by supporting our own that we see actively working, not just talking about it, but actively doing the work. And then ultimately, group economics starts with just coming up with an idea, seeing what problems are in your community, and you become the solution. and just start the conversation. Once you start the conversation and you're willing to show how you can provide some practical advice on how to get started, people corral around you and help you get to where you want to go.
Yeah. But I think, when we speak about the reason why we don't support each other and we're more critical of one another than we are of other people, of course, it stems back to the psychological impact
Right.
from slavery that has been passed down through generations. Um, but I personally feel that we're on a track to overcoming that because, like I said, we have the whole financial literacy movement. We have people working together in small pockets,
For
but
sure.
all it takes is those little pockets just to come together to form bigger circles. And I think over a period of time that's going to happen. That's the momentum
Sure.
that I'm seeing taking place. So people that want more information, from you, how to get in contact with you, to learn more about your programs, where can they find you?
Yeah. So the best way you can get to me is Instagram. I am Mr. West on Instagram. It's also, the same on TikTok. And I don't post too much on Twitter. I need to get better at Twitter. It is so many social media platforms. I will say, even as a content creator, it's hard to balance putting everything on everything. But Instagram would be the best way as far as social media is concerned. But they always can text or call me at 804-221-6226. That's my direct number. I'm here to be able to provide assistance. I'm here to be able to help untangle this web of financial jargon, I should say, and not make it so intimidating. I was talking to a sister about 2 weeks ago about assumptions. She's been living in her home from her mother had passed, and she's been living in that home, but it's still in the estate name. And just being able to just give her that information, she was like, that's 50% of the battle, was just knowing where to get started. And many of us, we sit back and we don't know what to do. So I'm extending myself to be available to understand whatever question that you have. Even if I don't know the answer directly, I will do the research and find the answer for you or direct you in the right direction of where you can get that information. As well. Like I said, I specifically am in money management, home ownership, and avoiding foreclosure, and then understanding how to bounce back if you do happen to get to foreclosure, how to navigate that successfully without really having all of that negative impact on your credit. Not from a standpoint of fixing your credit, because again, you fix your credit over time. That's not something that you can just write a dispute letter and then it's gonna be all washed away. No, we're gonna do it the right way. Let's get control of our spending. The best way to fix your credit is to pay your bills on time. So that's what I landed on. But again, my number is 804-221-6226. If you need help with home ownership, just DM me on Instagram or text me directly, and I'll get you whatever information you need.
All right. That's that phone number there, 804-221-6226. You could say text you, correct? Or they can just call
Text or call, either one. I would prefer you to text me first so I can know who you are. I don't do any automation. I haven't got to that point. I haven't had that many people reach out to me like in concession to be able to say, okay, I don't know what's going on here. So if you do reach out to me, I would prefer you to text me. But if you have something, just give me a call, leave a message. If I don't answer right away, because I'm probably on the phone with someone else. But definitely reach out. Don't be afraid to reach out. Come with your questions. Even if you don't have any questions and you just want information, reach out. Look on my Instagram. Like I said, right now I'm talking about right now is just money management and budgeting. I have a free budget calculator. So if you do want to text me the word budget and I'll get you that free budget calculator, or you can go to the link in my bio on my Instagram and you can get that for free as well. Because like I said, the goal is for us to get control of our spending. We've spent the most money over the last few decades now. We've been spending the most money, yet we complain about getting money from the government and getting reparations, but we have the reparations and it's all in our mind and it's in our unity is how we can get free of this debt, get free of the system and be able to really live and not just survive.
Right. All right, man. I could spend hours talking with you about these different topics.
Yes.
So okay, we done went an hour already.
Time be flying when you're having fun, man.
Of course. So, are there any closing thoughts you want to share before you wrap up today?
Yeah, I'll leave it at this. I've been talking about research a lot, and again, I just want to kind of camelback on that and just say that don't be afraid to read. If you don't like to read, go find you a video. If you don't want to do a video, go find you a podcast like Malik's First Job podcast and get the information. There's countless examples and brothers and sisters out here that want to share their information. They want to share the experience. They want to tell you what they know. And it's only so much that we can talk about on these platforms, and that don't be afraid to reach out to them. And the best way to be able to find out people's integrity, being understanding where you don't want to be influenced by everything. Find out what you can get inspired by. Let this be something to inspire you to want to look at yourself and say, okay, what can I improve on? And don't be afraid to improve. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. I'll leave it at that as well. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, because we do it every day. And the only way that you can get ahead or to reach success is you have to fail and you have to make mistakes. And once you do make that mistake, share that experience with someone else so they don't make the same mistake twice. The last thing I'll say on that as well is that home ownership is our vehicle to get to generational wealth. Investing is great. And many of us, we want to get into the stock market. We want to get into understanding business and entrepreneurship, but we all live in an investment. Whether you are renting, you're in an investment, and you're going through the practice of investing as well, because you're paying on a monthly basis. But just find a way, or what I like to say, we steal away. We steal away and figure out a way to park some money in a place that you can really own something of your own, so that you can pass it down. And don't be so quick to sell. Don't be so quick to give away your asset. Let's hold on to it, and be able to pass that information and the asset down to the next generation.
Yes. Wesley, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to come and chat with my audience today, man. It's a wealth of information.
I appreciate you, brother.
It's all, it's the old saying that's still relevant today: each one teach one, right? It's all about, teaching what we know to those who do not know.
Right.
That's our duty.
Yes,
right?
indeed. Yes, indeed.
Right? Yes, sir. So again, thank you for joining us for another episode of Malik's First Job podcast. Again, we had a great episode today, and we're going to see y'all next week. Peace.
Peace.
Generational wealth.